Let's welcome our next guest, and we have his intro, which is a classic, none other than Jeff Erickson. Let's play the intro right now.
It's time once again for Game Points to bring in the expert. RotoWire.com senior editor Jeff Erickson here to teach you more than what you learn at that fancy school of yours. So take the crayons out of your ears, shut up, and listen good. Here is Jeff Erickson.
Good evening, Jeff. What is the weather like in your part of the world, sir?
Hey, Mo. It was 103 today.
Oh, you're so lucky.
We actually yesterday we canceled my daughter's soccer practice. Got up to 107. So you know what though, I'm. It's a little too much, but at the same time, that's a first world problem. I don't mind for that.
Speaking of too much, Tony Romo and his I call him Mr. Monday Night because he always comes up big on Monday Night Football with his INTs. Where do you lay the blame? Do you blame it on Romo, and is he going to be a fantasy football hazard for those who own him right now with him throwing so many INTs, or do you blame him more on Des Bryant, who could also be another hazard for owners that have him on their roster?
I think you got to split that blame. Early on, Des Bryant was wearing the Jester's motley there. Between running bad routes, which were turned into pick sixes, and just dropping passes. Yeah, he was a large part of the reason why they fell behind. Once they fell behind, it was like open season on Romo. They knew they had to pass. They had to abandon the run, and the Bears have a pass rush that can punish you for that. So after that happened, then you're kind of split in between the two. So I look at it from that way. And Romo, he didn't play well either. Let's not make too many excuses for him because he obviously he didn't perform so well either. But so I'd say probably 60. Yeah, I'd say 50-50 on the blame. Actually, I think I'd lay it right down the middle.
Jeff, if you weren't to look it up, you wouldn't really know it. But Brian Hartline leads the league in receiving. Is this a type of thing that's going to last very long, or is this just one of those early season flukes and it's going to go away pretty soon?
He's not going to go away entirely because he's getting the targets week in, week out. And it's funny because in one of my leagues, someone got frustrated because he had one catch the week against the Jets, but he was targeted 9 times in that game. So I kind of just was like, I took the chance, picked him up, used him in my flex spot. It's a PPR league. He's money in PPR leagues. You know you're going to go ahead and get the targets there. So took the chance on him there, and he, of course, went off in that game. And, had like a 46-point game in my league because we had points for 100-yard, bonus points for 100 yards, bonus points for 200 yards, bonus points for 50-plus receptions and all that. So it was crazy. Against Arizona, in Arizona, nonetheless. That's the thing that blows me away. Tannehill was able to accomplish this with Hartline on the road in Arizona with that defense.
Jeff, speaking of being blown away, the New Orleans Saints are 0-4 this season. I don't think a lot of people would have pegged that to happen, even given the whole Bounty Gate scandal, but I think it shows just how much a coach can mean to an NFL team. Is this the week they finally get it done? They're at home, and they host the San Diego Chargers.
I think there's a reasonable chance, although it's funny. I mean, I read something that they're 3-point underdogs in this game, and that's like the smallest margin a team has been in terms of being an underdog as an 0-4 team playing against a team with a winning record. So if you think about all those factors together, it's in New Orleans. Of course, that matters a little bit. San Diego usually isn't as good on the road as they are at home. I think they could get it done. I think it's going to be close. I think there's going to be a couple, I think the San Diego is going to get their share of points. It's not just the coach. The problem is their defense, their personnel is just not the same. They lost some guys via free agency and, of course, via suspension as well and injuries. That there's a number of reasons why this team is kind of hurting, and they can't stop anybody. I mean, Cedric Benson averaged over 4 yards a carry against him. He never does that.
We're in conversation with Jeff Erickson on of RotoWire.com here on TSN Radio 690. Jeff, Matthew Ross wanted me to ask you this question. Andre Brown, the Giants running back, what do you foresee happening with him? Didn't play much at all or have an impact against the Eagles. Will his reduction come down the forefront where he won't be as a forefront factor for the Giants?
Clearly Bradshaw is going to get the majority of carries, at least when the game is on the line. I think if they ever get a lead, you'll see Andre Brown get in there a little bit more, see if they can save Bradshaw. And the thing is, Bradshaw's got a neck injury. All it takes is one hit, and he gets a hit a little sideways, gets a little askance, and it aggravates that neck injury right away. So I would be holding on to Andre Brown right now. Wouldn't be starting him. It's a shame too because this matchup against the Browns I would like otherwise, but. I think there's a possibility somewhere down the line he's going to have one of those 15 to 20 carry games still.
Any reason for concern with Darren McFadden? Great game against Pittsburgh, terrible game against Denver, and also with Chris Johnson. He finally broke through with 145 yards rushing last week against Houston. Any concern with McFadden of him and his production dropping down, and will Chris Johnson's production move up now after his strong performance against Houston?
You know what? I think that McFadden, there is some concern. They switched to a zone blocking scheme in the offseason, new line, new blocking scheme. I think there's been an adjustment curve here. But as we saw with Chris Johnson, this is almost eerily similar to how he started last year. First 3 games were awful, and he kind of had a pretty good fourth game. He's going to have some highs, some lows. I'm surprised he did against Houston. That was the part that surprised me. And this wasn't just garbage time either. In the first half, he had 10 carries for 58 yards. So he was getting some open holes, and he wasn't jitterbugging. He was going straight through them. That window to buy low on him is probably closed. I would trade. I would probably trade Willis McGahee for him right now, even though McGahee's running pretty well, has had touchdowns 3 straight weeks, and it will be valuable in the stretch. And take that chance at the guy that's going to have some dynamic upside, especially if you're off to a 2-2 or a 1-3, or I guess if you're a Chris Johnson owner, you're probably off to a tough start. You could even be 0-4. But I think this is the type of home run you try to swing for here if you're off to a tough start. Hope that you're buying at his lowest point and see if he can bounce back.
Jeff, things looking worse and worse by the day for the Titans. Jake Locker injuring his left shoulder on Sunday. Looks like he's out for several weeks. But is this a case where Matt Hasselbeck, his value really comes in, and maybe the Titans receivers get a bolt of energy from the veteran?
It's plausible. They're not going to, because Locker's definitely going to miss this week against Minnesota. Minnesota's actually a pretty credible defense. I think this is not going to be the greatest matchup for him. So from that point of view, I'm a little concerned. I don't think Hasselbeck has got a huge upside. He had a couple games early last year where he put up some numbers, but for the most part, he was pretty milquetoast. I see him as more like a bye-week only sort of guy.
Jeff, 3 undefeated teams left in the league at 4-0, Atlanta, Arizona, and Houston. I'm not going to ask you to pick the one that doesn't belong, because I think we all would have pegged Arizona at the beginning of the season. But at this point, who is going to be the last team to lose? Who is the remaining undefeated team out of those 3?
I think it's going to be Houston, but they all 3 could lose this week. I think the Redskins, it could provide a decent amount of challenge for Atlanta. I would not be surprised in the slightest if Arizona lost on Thursday night at St. Louis. Division game. St. Louis is a little bit better than people realize. Their defense can actually play a little bit. And I don't trust Kevin Cobb still, even to this day. I mean, he looked awful against Miami this past week. They had the late rally, but he threw a really brutal interception in the end zone that really put them behind the 8 ball when they had a chance to take the lead then. And for the most part, I just don't trust them. So that defense is strong. They don't have a great offensive line. I think that's a formula there for a chance where they could fall behind against somebody. I don't think that they're going to ride it out very long. So I think they'll be the first to lose.
We're in conversation with Jeff Erickson on RotoWire.com here on TSN Radio. Jeff, before we let you go, is there one sleeper that you would suggest to our listeners to maybe pick up on the waiver wire and put in the line for this Sunday's games?
You're going to want to watch the injuries again. It's funny. This past week we thought there's a number of guys that could pan out. Of all the injury replacements, only Lance Ball did anything, and he did his in garbage time. All the guys that we thought couldn't play actually ended up playing. So you want to watch out for that. I would say of those that are definitely out, I'd watch for Jeremy Curley. I don't love the matchup this week, but he's going to get a lot of targets for the Jets now that Santonio Holmes is out for a number of weeks. So I'd watch out for him. Watch out to see what happens with Pittsburgh. Mendenhall is back this week. First game back. I want to see what happens to the running game with him returning. I still believe they're going to throw the ball a ton this year, and I think that you're going to see Antonio Brown and Mike Wallace be great all year.
Jeff, what do you have lined up for RotoWire.com going into Week 5 of the NFL?
I just posted my value meter, which is our weekly rankings article. We do this by position for the given week. We account for all the bye weeks, all the injuries, the trends as best we can. I post it on Tuesdays. We do an update based on the Wednesday practice and injury reports, and then again on Friday night / Saturday morning. And then we have our Ask an Expert. If you don't get your question answered ever on the air, if you texted questions didn't get it answered, you can plug it in our Ask an Expert service. We'll get back to you within 24 hours. And check it all out for free at rotowire.com/free. Get a free 10-day trial.
Jeff, thank you very much. Enjoy your warm weather in Southern California.
Will do. Hang in there, guys.
We will. We have 4.5, maybe 5 months of cold weather coming up for us.
and no hockey to go with it.
No way.
Brutal. I hate that, too.
It's too bad, but eventually they'll be back on the ice soon enough, sir.